Hello, everybody. My name is Shannon Ely. I'm Director of Communications and Marketing at Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce, and I am honored to be joined this evening by Peter Lazarski and Robert Mostyn, who are collaborators on a very exciting game that has just hit a very popular and accessible platform, the Nintendo Switch. It's called Halloween Forever, and it has a unique Rochester connection that we want to explore and really dive into the business of games and how to get a game on such an accessible platform and what goes into it and the story of Halloween Forever. So welcome, Pete and Rob. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to dive right into it. Pete and Rob, how do you guys know each other?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
we used to share an art space in Village Gate.
Yep.
I think that we knew of each other prior to that, but then that's kind of when we started to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right, Pete?
I think so. And I think then, when we both had sort of interests and orbits around games. Like Rob used to be one of the main people sort of in kind of the Rochester chiptune scene and just the music scene in general. Rob's always been a really good organizer. And I think we were both starting to kind of scratch the surface of making our own sort of game side projects around a similar time. And we were kind of just I want to talk to somebody about this and, share some of this with a friend. And we started talking a bit more. And I think that also kind of led to kind of the early beginnings of what wound up becoming Rock Game Dev 2, which was just trying to get people together that were involved and interested in games and give them sort of just a place to, or let's go get coffee and see if anybody else is around and, do some skill sharing and workshops and whatnot.
Yeah. Cause that's what we started doing. We just started meeting kind of one-on-one to have coffee. And I think initially, Pete, you were developing Halloween Forever.
Yeah.
You knew I made music with Game Boys and you're like, oh, I want that in my game. And I'm happily, I would love to do that. I haven't done that yet. But then in meeting and seeing you make a game, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so that's kind of where Rock Game was kind of born out of too.
Yeah.
So I think that's when we really started collaborate, it was official collaboration. And then here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, it's a bit of time, but also, I guess Halloween Forever has had sort of a long lifetime or life cycle, and we can talk about that a little bit as well. But also, I feel like it's kind of gone in this fun first full circle way where the last summer we did an update that went out onto the PS4 and Steam and other platforms, but that was also us kind of staging to get ready for the Switch release. And part of that was we're adding additional characters as unlockable characters to Halloween Forever. And one of those, I was it'd be great to get Ray from Rob's game, A Small Robot Story, in there. So, and now Ray is big front and center on the Switch store page cover art. So
it's wild to see.
It feels good. It's kind of a full circle thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe could each of you, maybe starting with Peter, just share a little bit about your game dev story? I mean, obviously you guys sort of came up in the Rochester scene, but can you share sort of the path towards becoming, your own creator of games?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was, time spent working at Workin' Man Interactive. I spent a bunch of years, before then trying to say what am I going to do for a career that is some kind of hybrid between design or illustration or art or something, and always kind of into the the technical end of things. And that it was a nice span of time. I think I was there for about 9 years or so. I spent some time art directing there as well, and it was just really good exposure, lots of hands-on experience, just creating and shipping games, really nice people too. So I think part of that was after doing it for, clients or doing it for as a service sort of scenario, it got me kind of thinking, I do the art side of things really well, but it'd be really nice to make my own games and figure out some of that. And I think I'd tried learning, some degree of programming off and on over the years, and always kind of struggled with that part just because I just couldn't pick it up as well as I wanted to. And I think the big changing factor for me was when I found this engine programming language like setup called Game Maker. And for years I thought it was like kind of, maybe like too novice, so I didn't really like mess around with it. But then I started seeing, really good indie games, like stuff that I would respect, and finding out that it was made in Game Maker. And I was like, oh shoot, I think my perceptions have been wrong. Let me see if I can, it kind of like gave me like a reason to like, let me check that out and see if there's something I could do there. And there was just so much good information on YouTube and just like tutorials to get, like bite-sized chunks of like, if you wanted to build like a platformer game, like Halloween Forever is that like just little a la carte kind of things, like here's how you set up a character, here's how you set up, ladders, here's how to design like a basic enemy, different things like that. And just getting to sit and learn with a video as instruction just felt a lot more natural, or just worked for my learning style than, in the past where I'd sat down with like books essentially, and I just didn't really grasp it. And another great thing about Halloween or about Game Maker is that it's got a very short ramp to, I'm just putting assets in to like, I can test it and sort of see what it does. So you can prototype really fast, and it was really easy to get like immediate results from it in a way. And then that gave me like some confidence, or like, like a dopamine rush, or like, and you felt good sort of, sticking around and tackling something more challenging.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I would say my story, and Pete kind of touched on it, was I used to co-run a group called Rochester Chip, being short for chiptune, which is music made on Nintendo's, Game Boys, old consoles. Basically, you kind of reuse them, use a program on them to basically access what is essentially a circuit on the motherboards to produce music that sounds like, music from our childhoods. And in 2010, I was doing that, running this group. We were booking shows at like local venues like Bug Jar and things like that, of musicians who perform this music. And I started to learn how to write music on the Game Boy. And then through that was trying to write music for people's games and like reaching out. And I think that's kind of how, like, around the same time, Pete and I kind of, we knew of each other, but then our paths started to cross a little bit more. And then in writing music for Halloween Forever, like I mentioned, I kind of was introduced to, Pete was using Game Maker, but just the whole idea of, making your own game. And I had a background, I was a graphic designer at the time, so I had a bit of experience with art, clearly music, but same thing, I didn't know coding. I ended up using a different program called Construct 2 to make my game. And it was around that time, 2015, 2016, that I started to work on my first game, and then went on to release it in 2017. So yeah, for me, it started more with like the music and kind of just being introduced to game development through that. So that's about it.
Very cool. Yeah, the Tetris music will forever be one of, the most fire soundtracks of my life. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's timeless.
Very cool. Now, when you're, designing music or writing music, with one of those consoles, is there, are you constrained by the keys or the notes that you can use? I'm curious how that works.
Yeah, you're constrained actually in a wonderful way. You're constrained with how many, I guess you could say, instruments you could use. Since the Game Boy, the original Game Boy came out in 1989, I want to say. And, the memory that you could, that it could use up just for music was so small. So you're limited to like 4 what are called instrument channels. And one of those being white noise, which is like TV static, which is what we kind of used for like cymbal sounds and snare sounds. So then you can only really write melodies on 3 different channels, any notes, anything like that. But the limitations is what I loved about it. It forced you to be really creative. I did write music with other digital workstations on computers and stuff. I do write music with, real instruments, but it's easy to get carried away when you can like create as many effects and as many instruments as you want on the computer. So it was nice going to something like the Game Boy and having these limitations and having to be real creative within them. To this day, I still love that. I still use it all the time to write music and just get like ideas out really quick. And then maybe, build them up from there.
I was gonna say Rob was really patient with me too, because I'd have feedback and stuff, or we'd like talk about things and just sort of like, oh, like this is cool. Could we try to do that? And it was like very obliging with me. Like if we wanted to like try and nudge something, also like me having no idea how difficult it is to do like the music on a Game Boy. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
That was fun. It was fun. And using non-musician language to describe things like, oh, this sounds real pointy. And I'm like, I know what you mean. Can we round this off? I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, that's a great segue into my next question. And Rob, you touched on a little bit, sometimes limitations can be liberating, but why design a retro 8-bit platformer in today's day and age where you see, some of the game industry going towards hyper realism, and then you also do see this resurgence of retro games, which I'm all about. I literally have a Game Boy in my desk because it's my favorite console. So, tell us a little bit more about the decision to go retro for the game.
Yeah, I think the bit there, it's like a two-pronged thing. The big thing is just that's it's a big part of like the aesthetic that I enjoy. When I played like classic games, current new indie things, like AAA stuff, whatever, like all sorts of things. But when it comes down to like what I want to make, there's kind of this like sweet spot of kind of what I want to do plus like nostalgia, where I used to always kind of say that if it's something that I would have gotten really excited about when I was a kid, then that's kind of like a good place to land. And there's just something nice about the I don't know, just like the old school feel that feels pretty good and fun to do. And pixel art is really fun to make the assets for and animate. And also I think with Halloween Forever too, I kind of understood that the more involved or in depth or high fidelity your art assets are and your pipeline is, the more expensive it is to produce. Even if time is like your budget, or time is like the asset that you're going to be spending, it takes more time. So I knew that I wanted to give myself a better chance of finishing something. And also I think with Halloween Forever, I wanted to spend more of my budget on, I had to learn to code, and it was easier to sort of knock out a bunch of like limited color palette sprites. Like they're easy to animate too, because like it's silhouettes and color for the most part. And then it would free me mentally to like just bang my head against the wall for weeks at a time, like trying to figure out how to write like a control input remapping menu or something like that is just like not where I really come from as far as like, let me just make it look cool. But it worked well enough that the game is good, and it's like sound and it's solid. And now also like trying to build off some of that knowledge, it makes me feel good about, say, for the next game or the next games, those can be a little bit more free or in depth with the art. Still going to be pixel art, just because it's I've done plenty of like 3D over the years, but I just know for stuff that happens like on my time, or kind of evening, nights and weekends sort of stuff, it's just better to just do something that I could finish.
Great. Yeah, you mentioned that your game is the front page of the Nintendo Switch site. Why do you think that there is this renewed interest in retro games?
I don't know. I think just I think people, there's a lot of opinions about it too, and different people have like different tastes and things. And for anybody that loves retro games or pixel art stuff, you could find just as many people that swear by only wanting to play Call of Duty or this or that. But I think the nice thing, I really don't know why, but I think maybe if anything, people are maybe starting to appreciate that just like if the game is fun, it's fun, and that there's so many games out nowadays too. There's like so many different kinds of things to get into that I think people are seeing, some people are getting into, games again after not being into it for years, and they're seeing stuff that kind of resonates with maybe what they saw as a kid. Or some people have been playing games for 35 years and they've seen this like whole kind of continuity of things, and maybe their tastes have evolved. Maybe, they're like calling back to something that they really like or enjoyed. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a ton of games out there, and also just more people playing them than ever before. So I think part of it is just people are able to kind of find like like their stuff, and it's a lot more accessible to get into now.
Definitely. Rob, how about you? Any thoughts on why the nostalgia factor is so big these days?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that, there is, I feel like as somebody who did step away from games for a while, just out of life happening, but then coming back to them, it was exciting to see. I think, 2007-ish, there was a free game called Cave Story, which came out, and it might have even been before that, but it was like one of the first indie games that I saw that was pixel art. And I just was like, wow, I haven't seen it's like a new old game. It looked like it was made for Super Nintendo, but I knew all the Super Nintendo games. And that was just real exciting to see. And then more and more of them happening. I think with pixel art specifically too, like Pete said, there's people who they're not a fan of it, but I think that's because it's now become more of a style where it was a limitation before. Like that's all they could do, just like I mentioned with the Game Boy and limiting the amount of instruments you could use. There was only so big of a color palette and a pixel palette that you had to choose from. But now we don't have that limitation, so you can do some pretty wild things with pixel art that we couldn't do. But at the same time, it's just a style now, which is kind of nice in my opinion. I like that it's seen more as a style. Granted, it is easier and quicker to do when you're an individual or a small team, so it makes sense to use it. But it's pretty neat to see some of the things people are dealing with it. One of the games I think of is on Switch, actually, Octopath Traveler. It's like an RPG, and it's like really neat 3D environments, but pixel art, and it looks like little tiny like sets, like little toy dollhouse setups almost.
Yeah, it's like cool dioramas.
Diorama, thank you.
Pixel
Yeah,
dioramas. Yeah.
And it's so neat to see this really retro look, but in a modern application with effects, and just neat to see people doing new things with pixel art.
Yeah, I think people take it in both ways too. There are people that are taking sprites and then putting effects and shaders and like kind of different exciting layers on top of it. And then there's also people that go kind of this like very purist route, and they will make something and kind of study what the visual limitations were on like an NES or like a Spectrum, ZX Spectrum, or like any kind of like retro platform. And they'll kind of say, well, the colors they used were different, and then the way that they used colors were different, and even like the way that they did sound was kind of specific. And some people will kind of go down that route, and it's always like fun to see the different choices people make. And even to people nowadays, there's sort of like I don't think it's like a huge thing, but like a lot of people are more and more people are getting into doing like repro cartridges where they'll take here's like a game that I'm making now in like 2021 or whatever, but I've developed it in such a way that I can actually live on a physical like NES cart or something for a specific console and run on the console. And also you could probably get it on Steam or do this and that. And part of that is people just getting very esoteric with like maybe they've learned assembly and they've done it like the actual original way they would have done it, or there's different other tools. I think like NES Maker might be one.
GB Studio for Game Boy.
Yeah, there's like different ways, and it's like you might sacrifice some things, but also it's very exciting for people that are still kind of into kind of like the physical media of it. I think there's a big part of people that are into games, indie games still, that really, you know, you're playing like a software product, but people also still, you know, it's a lot of like, you know, nerds that love collecting stuff, and like the physical thing is like cool. People get excited about it. And I think there's also just been like a big boom in the last couple of years about different smaller publishing houses that will publish like physical editions for like indie games. And with Halloween Forever, with like the work that we were able to do with Poppyworks, we were able to release the game for PS4, the Vita, and now the Switch. But like along the way too, we also did a physical version for the PS4 and a physical version for the Vita, which, you know, like all happened because of just like the like relationships that like Wolfgang at Poppyworks was able to set up with, you know, additional sort of like publishers that specialize in physical releases. So, and that's in that it, like I wouldn't have been able to do that at all if it was just, you know, me trying to figure this stuff out too.
Kind of reminds me of you know, the resurgence of vinyl, and you know, people love that physical.
100%.
Okay. Cool. Pete, you know, why Halloween? Why Halloween Forever? I mean, I know why Halloween, it's the best holiday, but you know, where did that inspiration come from for you?
Yeah, Halloween is cool. I just, you know, I like people would joke with me like, oh, what comes next? Like Thanksgiving Forever? And I'd be like, no, actually no. I should have put a turkey Easter egg in the game or something, but yeah, I've just always been like a horror movie, like monster nerd, you know, Halloween stuff is fun. There's like, it's kind of like a Easter eggish thing, or just something that I've always really liked. What is it? So there's probably like the black sheep of the Halloween movie series is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, where you have like weird Stonehenge magic turning like kids that wear like these like pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern skull and like witch masks into like piles of snakes and stuff. And I think Halloween Forever originally had Pumpkin Man, the skeleton, and Miss Witch as the 3 unlockable characters, and they're sort of modeled after like the 3 masks from the Silver Shamrock, like the made up costume maker and the
those evil Irish people. It's like the most random thing.
It was a pretty cool scheme for revenge. They could have pulled it off.
Yeah. No, that was very cool. When I saw that in the credits, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so funny. It's the most bizarre movie of that, but it stands on its own. You know, you don't need Michael Myers when you've got people turning into snakes and lizards.
the thing that I, you know, and I didn't even know the movie really existed for years, because I saw a clip of it when I was a kid. I saw a clip of the transformation scene where they've got like the family in like the screening room, and like the son has the mask on, and they show the commercial, and he just like melts into like a pile of crickets or something. And then it's like, you know, you think back to like things you see when you're a kid, and they're like whoa, that shook me. And that was like one of them, but I could never find it again because I didn't know that it was like the 3rd movie hidden in the Halloween series, just because like there's nothing in there that says, you know, Halloween 3, the movie where kids' masks turn into, you know, crickets or whatever. So it wasn't until I was like just kind of watching stuff and like going through it years later that I like rediscovered it, and I had like a literal freak out, because it's like I used to see, you know, different animated shorts and things that there's no way to like pin it down if you don't know the name of the thing or you don't know who made it. But I got so excited when I rediscovered it again. I was like, there's a whole movie. It's not just like this one bizarre scene. And so that was a big treat. I think it was around then that I was like, they even brought, I think the Eastman House brought Tom Atkins to town and did like a double feature where they showed Halloween 3 and also The Fog, and he stuck around for a Q&A, and getting to go to that was like, this is one of the good times of life right now. So yeah, he was a pretty fun guy.
Yeah, even when they show like the marathons on AMC, they leave that one out, and I'm like, come on, let's put that.
Yeah, it's really good though. Yeah, the world wasn't ready for Halloween.
Rob, what about you? Are you a big Halloween fan as well?
The holiday in general, yes. I haven't watched, I think I've only seen the first movie, so I haven't actually seen the one you guys are talking about. But yeah,
Movie
you
night.
know, yeah, definitely. When you mentioned, why Halloween to Pete, having known Pete before the game, I was a fan of some of his art when he was making t-shirts, and I have a ton of them now. I always make jokes about, oh, the Pete Lazarski collection, I'm trying to collect them all. But it makes it, when Pete kind of pitched Halloween Forever to me, I'm like, oh, this makes total sense with his style of stuff, which I'm a fan of too. I love horror movies, big sci-fi fan, and all the things in between. And we've talked a lot about our love for like horror medieval type stuff and all that fun stuff. So it was exciting to work on something like that, and I was like definitely on board for that.
Rob, what were some of your inspirations for the music, which is very distinctive and awesome?
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question because I was writing before we talked about me writing music for Halloween Forever. I was writing solo music as a performer, as a musician with the Game Boy. And my music tends to run very poppy and major key, which Halloween Forever music is neither of those two. So yeah, so spooky. So I listened to a lot of like John Carpenter stuff. I listened to just a lot of like 80s, slasher music, just to be like, okay, what are the defining characteristics of this music? A big one is like vibrato, where the notes kind of wave. I think in the first, I think in the theme song, you can hear that. And that was a big thing to do, just that like wavery note feel kind of as a spooky sound. If you think of those, those ghost decorations everybody has, and you walk close to them and it's like that. Yeah. It's essentially that.
I was about to do it, but you
yeah.
beat me to it.
That's it. Like, I was like, that's what it is. It's that ghost sound.
It's the sound that ghosts make.
Pretty much.
Clearly.
But like the first area music was pretty straightforward. It kind of has more of like my almost solo music feel. But then I think the second area is the mansion. Is it Bloody Mansion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm like, all right, no percussion. I want to almost go with like a 1800s, proper Madame Monsieur feel, but with like that kind of like still spooky vibe to it, which is a lot of fun. And then actually a couple of the last songs I actually collabed with my sister and her husband on. We all kind of wrote things together, put ideas back and forth. She's a much better musician than I am, so it was a lot of fun. She had ideas that I just would never thought of, but then I brought them over to the Game Boy and kind of worked them that way. So yeah, a lot of 80s stuff, a lot of just trying new things that I normally wouldn't do on my own, which is always a lot of fun.
Very cool. All right. Yeah. So Pete, you mentioned, Halloween Forever having a long life, and, just doing a little research. It looks like it was released on Steam, for the PC back in 2016. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about getting the game on consoles and just, what were your goals for this game when you started out?
Yeah, I think so. My goals for Halloween Forever when I started out, it was really, much more basic than that. Even I was just like, let me see if I can, like make something and try and finish it, or just let me see if I can program a game and then sort of just set it free or set it, up for sale somewhere. And it was originally the original version before Steam lived on this website called itch.io. And that came out. So if it came out on 2016 on Steam, it would have been out in 2015 on itch.io. And that version was smaller. It had only 3 unlockable characters, only 3 worlds. There was only 1 boss per world. And I think I was selling it for like $2.99 at the point that was. And I thought, well, this is like a pretty good milestone. It's out. People can get their hands on it. This is, exciting for me. But I thought, good job, you finished you're making your thing, what's next? And I thought, like I was like thinking about, I could start a new game, or I could, take a break or do something else. But and people that played it were happy with it. And I thought maybe instead I'll just like, maybe I could just add more to it. And around that time, I think I was starting to do some stuff on Twitch where I would just kind of sit down and do like a game development live stream, just to sort of give myself like another reason to like sit down and like keep the motivation going, and not be just sitting alone at a desk at night, kind of typing away and, pushing art around. And that was really nice too, because that, it was like meeting new friends and getting, new people kind of exposed to some of the work that I'm doing, but also I'd get exposed to things that other people were doing. It remains kind of like a really nice, like, like a conduit of just, good interaction and sort of like good community stuff that comes from it. But there was that period of time from, the itch version to, like whenever in 2015 to October of 2016, which is when the Steam version came out. And at that point, the game had 5 levels. Each level had like a mini boss and like a full boss. So there's like 2 bosses per world, a bunch of more awesome music from Rob, and additional unlockable characters. And there were like some accessibility features I was trying to get in for some different people that were in the community kind of requesting stuff. And it felt like kind of like a good living thing. At that point too, I was like, okay, cool. This game got much bigger. At that point I felt comfortable charging $4.99 for it. And I was like, it's like, cool, it's done. And I was kind of like honestly kind of going on to work on the next thing at that point. And I think it wasn't until maybe 2017 or so, like I'm pretty bad with like the chronology, but it was at least a year or maybe 2 after that, I was on Twitter and I saw some tweets from this this account called Poppyworks, and they're saying, like, hey, if anybody out there has Game Maker Studio 1.4 games and they are interested in porting them to consoles, reach out. Because what was happening with Game Maker is they were releasing a new version, or they had released a new version, and support for like the old version was getting deprecated or sunset, so that it was going to be, if something needed to be fixed infrastructure wise and like the engine, it would be potentially harder in the future. And we just kind of had like a cold call DM moment, and we're just like do you mean like this? Kind of just probably lots of like internet shrugging and stuff. And we had a conversation. I thought, it would be cool to bring Halloween Forever to consoles. It's the kind of thing that I obviously wasn't doing on my own, because my focus is, I want to make the thing. I want to create content for the thing. I'm not really like a business development person or a marketer, or even like doing lots of like technical programming stuff. It's not really where I want to spend my time. So to be able to sit down and say, I could have an agreement with these folks and they would help do the console porting of this and potentially reach like a wider audience, why, like what do I have to lose? Kind of not much. And I did a little bit of work here and there to sort of help them fix things or tweak things as it needed to be done. But honestly, like Poppyworks did a lot of hustle. I like, at least as far as I'm concerned, as far as like the amount of like effort that I had to put in to sort of say like, all right, here we go, and you let it fly. And just the different, like being able to get to multiple different platforms now, and being able to get multiple physical editions and certain things like that. And just kind of seeing like different sort of people and talent that got pulled in to sort of help those along, like different collaborations with other artists for key art or box art that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of doing myself. But just when I get to like look back and see the whole thing sort of laid out in front of me now, it just feels really good that it's been able to do all of this in kind of the span of like 5 or 6 years. And and it definitely wouldn't have happened if it was just me, because I don't do this stuff full time, and I wouldn't have had time to do it, or even like the knowledge of how to do it.
Pete, where is, I know it matters less and less these days, but where is PoppyWorks sort of headquartered?
I think they were located in Tennessee for a while, but I think Florida now. So even, yeah, Wolfgang Wozniak, he's a really great partner. And it's kind of a niche thing, like people that have like Games Made in Game Maker. I think he's also started working with developers that have their games in other engines. I think he has a couple Unity projects and maybe some other things. But yeah, just a pretty good resource. And even still, like a lot of I think a lot of what happens in like the independent game space is people are very amenable to like sharing information, or people have questions. You can get really good answers from a lot of people. And I think he has there's a PoppyWorks Discord, and it's probably like a good place for people to go and just like ask questions about stuff too.
Cool. Just a side, detour on the path towards the Switch and the PS4, but I know for a time there was an arcade version of Halloween Forever at Swillburger. So how did that come to pass?
It's still there, and just like Swillburger's a little bit kind of quieted down for a second while they're just during all like the COVID stuff. But yeah, that actually happened. My friend Matt Denker helped me do a lot of the work assembling the arcade. I think it also came from just like being friends with the folks at Swillburger. Jay Rogers was like, we would just kind of like, I would just go in and have a beer and we'd talk and be like, it'd be cool to put Halloween Forever in here. And a couple times he brought me in and said, we've got this busted cabinet, we're not going to do anything with it. And I think like the first one or two didn't work out. I think the first one was Golden Tee, and it had a trackball. And I was like, I would feel bad like getting rid of the trackball if anybody else could, like if anybody could ever make Golden Tee run again, I wouldn't want to mess around with it. But I can't remember what we used in the end. But it didn't have like some kind of special. It just had like a control board with buttons that seemed a little bit less precious. But yeah, it was cool. What's up, kiddo? Just hanging out.
Yeah, because downstairs they don't want them.
Okay, well, just hang out with me while we talk to some friends. But yeah, Matt did a lot of the legwork, a lot of like the physical, like he's got the tools and things, and he helped cut the new control board and stuff, and we figured out how to wire up new controls and just do those all sorts of different things to get it running.
I look forward to playing it when we're back up and running at Swillburger. Cool. Let's give a sec. So moving on to the whole process of getting on these big consoles. What challenges in terms of game development and also business challenges did you have with porting the game and launching it there?
I think, and I kind of have to like answer a little bit by proxy, because I think the biggest challenge for me is sort of like time, and also kind of chasing down, like when it's fairly easy to release a game and put it up on Steam, or even like something for like PC or Mac or even Linux at that point. But and Rob could probably speak to this a lot too, just because of just like work that he's done with RAT Magic and such, and like student groups that have aspirations to get their stuff onto consoles and stuff, to be able to like release your game on a console. Not only do you have to have like a version that runs on the console, you need to essentially be invited in from the platform. You need some kind of a dev kit to test on. There's a lot of like relationship building that comes with that, and and also just time and resources, and sometimes the process can be kind of expensive too. So the great thing with PoppyWorks was they did a lot of like the legwork. Also, they have a lot of the relationships already in place, and even where they didn't, they kind of set up new partnerships to be able to enable us to pursue these things. So between I'm hoping I'm going to remember names correctly. We did the physical PS4 edition with Red Art Games. We did the Vita edition with East Asia Soft, and the Switch version was with Chuhai Labs. So there's like additional partners that we're all kind of like there to help out.
Yeah, and like one of the things, because we do a similar thing out at Magic at RIT, where we help local indies publish on platforms. And RIT, Magic at RIT, we have our own Switch developer kit. One of the developers in our program had applied for their own one, but were turned down just because they're an unknown entity to somebody like Nintendo. But us being a school, we've published before, it's a little bit easier for us to get access. Now our hope is, now that the developer has published on Switch and their name's attached to it, if they wanted to go get their own developer kit, start that relationship with Nintendo, it would be easier because they've kind of gone out there. So it is sort of like you have to be invited in, and then of course you have a lot of guidelines you have to meet, and your game has to work correctly and pass a bunch of tests, and it's a lot of not creating games type stuff.
Yeah. Right. I'm sure they're pretty stringent, with their. So is that Tengam?
Yeah, Tengam. Yep.
Tengam. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, another great Rochester story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Let's go to what else is out there that's exciting you guys today. New or even old games that are, really kind of breaking the mold for you.
It's a good question. Yeah, I keep coming back to, as far as like games that I'm playing, No Man's Sky is a game I keep coming back to. It had a very turbulent release. It was a tough game on release, but they've done some incredible things. They actually just released another update. It's just really cool to see things like that, like almost this new idea of living games. And I feel like Halloween Forever is even kind of like this, where you release a game and you continue to update it and add new things, and it's just this long life cycle for a game. And with each new update, you see new waves of people come on, especially when you release on a new platform. That's something I've been having fun with. Right now, I'm actually playing some old games on my DS, which is a lot of fun. I'm in school now on top of working, so if I play like one of my favorite PC games, I'll sit here for way too long. So I need to play something portable that I can put down after 30 minutes and walk away from.
Yeah, I think it's like 5 years later and I'm still trying to finish Bloodborne. So I take a while to like get through stuff. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of cool stuff, just different retro things. I think I gotta double check real quick. I'm pretty sure it's Broxia 2. Some friends of ours from sort of like the Buffalo game development scene had some involvement on this. I think Wayne did some art, or maybe all of the art, and Anthony did the music for it. I remembered to grab that the other day, and I got really excited just because I was like, my friends made this, and also it was super fun. So
yeah,
that's like the other exciting thing about being involved in different goings on in games, because like I get excited when I get to release something, because that's fulfilling and validating for me, but also I get really excited when I see friends of mine putting something out, and it's just it's just exciting. You get like, it's like everybody kind of like reached the milestone, and like big party.
Yeah. And P kind of mentioned, and we both kind of touched on it, how things like console are a little bit more invite only or gated in a certain way. But then, Pete had mentioned the website itch.io, which is an open market and anybody can upload their game there. They have an adjustable revenue share model where you can decide how much you give back to the platform. You can do nothing, you can do everything, anywhere in between. But what that's done is there's so many voices on there, and there's so many, like, I don't want to call them experimental, but just new approaches to games on this platform, just because it's an open market. And it's really neat to see. It's like you're getting some new voices, some new ideas, new things to try. And, all of them majority of them are indie. So, it's nice to see some smaller games, some smaller just interactives. And that's kind of always been exciting. Whenever I load up that page, it's like kid in a candy store. I'm like, all these new, cool, colorful things, and I want to try them all.
It's all like very novel.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's cool to see, alongside the big giants like Steam and all the consoles.
Awesome. What's next for each of you, Pete and Rob? And do you guys have any more collaborations planned?
Yeah, I would love to, get back into, team up mode again. That'd be super fun. I know we've been getting that a little bit too, because it was last year that Imaginary Monsters submitted a proposal through the Magic Incubator for a new game we're calling Grind Blood Gauntlet. It's kind of a roguelitey kind of reminiscent of like Smash TV sort of thing. You're just like this little soul character kind of trapped in like a hell dungeon, and you have to like spell your way out to survive. And we've been working on that with a small team of folks, and just trying to get it closer to,
Did you do this?
No, I didn't do those. Trying to get it closer to like the point where we can release it. I know, like, the funny thing is, like, we have like there's like a team of 4 of us, and also I feel like the 5th team member has just been the pandemic, and it's been, a mental ride and just kind of knocking everybody for a little bit of a loop. But we're still, chipping away at it and trying to kind of keep things moving. But it's it's still happening, so that's good.
Oh, we'll be on the lookout for that. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, I think, we collabed on Halloween Forever in like the pretty pure sense of like, artists. But from there, with Rock Game Dev starting, Pete's on the board of Rock Game Dev. I'm the director. We're still collaborating, but just in different ways. I'm not providing music per se. So I think a lot of our efforts right now in collaboration are community focused. Pete's somebody who's been doing this the longest in our community. So, people are always looking for his sage advice and input. And then, I'm kind of like moving things around and making the introductions and everything. So I think that's where we're working. You see us working together the most often. I'm still creating games on my own when I have the time to do so. That's just like Pete. It's so much fun just to make the thing and make the stories and little interactives that we want to. I tend to primarily work on my own, but I'm finding other little collaborations. I am making music right now for somebody else who's got into game development, so that's kind of fun. It doesn't stop. It's just more stories to tell and ways to tell them. So it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yes. And Rob, we appreciate you making yet another connection. You've done some awesome panels for us with our Climb program. And those are always some of the most exciting things just to hear about, Rochester's game scene, which I think is just like in its infancy. I think someday we're going to look and say, wow, we started there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. So we just have a couple minutes. I know that Rob's got a 7:00 stop, but for fans of Halloween Forever, which I'm the type, like, if I need a quick break, I'm picking up my Switch. I'm, Butternut Bro is my go-to right now. Like this. But what advice do you have for people that are facing the horrors, as it says?
Yeah, I guess I think everybody always says, like, try to keep your tasks sort of small, and like try not to like bite off more than you can chew with just game projects, because they take so much time, and it's like there's a lot that goes into it, and definitely like reach out, like find a community, or if you don't have a community of people that you can sort of like reach out to and respond to, like try and build one. And if it's like there's somebody out there who's going to like want to see your stuff and be excited about it and like want to give you some, you know, like heartfelt opinions and such. And yeah,
Who is that?
I don't know, one of the Zelda princesses, but yeah, I think just there's a lot of things that people can do, but I think community is a big one. And, you know, also as much as you can, it's really hard now probably with everything, but as much as you can also try to not like be stuck in like an isolation hermitage and sort of making things but never showing them to people. Like show people what you're doing, it just put it on Twitter, put it on the internet somewhere, just to get in the habit of I made the thing, but also I'm gonna like show it to the world, because some people get very like in their heads about, you know, when it's done or when it's perfect, and it will never be both, but you can get pretty far without either. So
Cool. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, you know, a lot of that definitely rings true. Yeah, putting things out there really helps, making it, you know, you almost, when you mention an idea or a project or you put it in front of somebody, it makes it real. And, you know, next time you talk to somebody, they want to follow up with you. That's a lot of what we do with Rock Game Dev. You know, the hope is you can show up, you can show off what you're doing, and then people are like, oh, I know that person now and I know their project and I can follow up with them. Just helpful to see. Yeah, and I don't know. Besides that, I would say, you know, if you're stuck on Halloween Forever at some point, what's the ladder jump trick there, Pete, that everybody loves?
oh geez, there might be like some YouTube videos about it.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember what they called it.
It's a funny, I thought it was a glitch and I told Pete and he's like, oh no, the community loves this thing. And it's a whole thing.
that's like the thing too. You can like test your game and like try to fix stuff, but also like it had gotten to this point where people were like, I used it for a speed run and I'm like, I'm okay, I'll leave it in because it's it's so goofy. And then I remember like Wolfgang telling me about it. He's like, hey, did you ever see this? And I'm like, yeah. Just leave it. He's like, okay, LOL.
Wait, can you jump from ladder to ladder like a Donkey Kong? Because I have not tried that yet, but
there's like this thing you do where I think I can't remember how you do it. You have to like when you're standing in front of a ladder, you like duck, shoot, and then jump, and your character just like flies up into the sky.
Yeah, and stays there.
If you hit the ceiling, then you're just like floating up at the ceiling.
Yeah. And so people have used it to like speed run the different levels and everything, just float across the top of the level.
Yeah, especially because like the last world has a lot of like really vertical ladders and stuff, and people do it and sort of like it's like the Hail Mary, because then you might get hurt and fall and then have to wreck your run. But
I love that. I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's fun.
We'll see if they patched it out of the Switch version.
Yeah, right. Well, no, thank you guys so much. We're right at time. I just want to thank you so much for sort of pulling back the curtain a little bit on what it takes to really go all the way to the big leagues. I mean, Nintendo is a huge player in the game world right now, and we really appreciate your insight and taking the time to share. So thank you guys so much, and best of luck on your future games, and definitely stay in touch.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon.
Super
Have
fun.
a great night.
All right.
You too. Thanks again.
Take care.